gonna do. Why do you keep touching that like it's not a touch screen? I keep going for the MacBook like it's a touch screen. It's not a touch screen.
You just think you have that soundboard, and you don't.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that. Oh, wait. I don't want to share from here. I don't want to share from here. Yeah. Mute. Mute, mute, mute. Mute, mute. Thank you. I don't think I want to share from here, do I? I think I have to do it one at a time.
1 minute.
I know. No, I don't want to switch profiles. I wanted to share. Okay, that's not going to. That's not work. Nope, that's not gonna work. Web version.
So my mic was okay.
Oh, all right, 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
Blah, 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 blah. 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock. There's nobody on before you. You don't need to wait. Connected.
Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know
And young enough to do.
well, it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. But it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy,
Kennedy, Kennedy, Kennedy.
Do you want a man with spirit who is not afraid to fight?
A man whose record shows that he will fight for what is right.
A loyal man who'll bring the job a fresh new point of view? Well, it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Cause it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy,
Kennedy, Kennedy, Kennedy, Kennedy.
And do you deny to any man the right he's guaranteed to be elected president, no matter what his creed?
It's promised in the Bill of Rights to which we must be true.
So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. And it's Kennedy, 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 for me.
Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair? We'll measure him against the others, and when you compare, you'll cast your vote for Kennedy and a change that's overdue. So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Yes, it's Kennedy, 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 for me. Kennedy, 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 Kennedy,
Welcome, welcome, welcome to my humble second, well, to and from, I guess, my humble second bedroom here in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley, in these in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I'm skipping and I'm ruining my own intro. In the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, part of these United States, North American continent, Western Hemisphere, on this planet Earth. The only one we have. Third rock from the sun. In the Terran solar system, this is the Kennedy Effect live with you. TKE tonight is live with you for the July 2nd, 2024. And as you can see, I'm doing some last minute sharing because it's always such a hit and miss when I do it, and what I get blocked from and what I don't get blocked from. So I am trying to do that as we speak. I didn't realize how many groups I belong to. Wow. Wow, I really belong to a lot of groups. There's a lot. And that's I mean, look, it's a good thing, right? You don't reach people if you can't reach people. So welcome back to the second night of TKE tonight and the second day of GCPR radio. We're thrilled to have you here. Really, really happy to have you here. Now, let me just tell you that last evening we debuted Such As It Is. And boy, it didn't go great, did it? Let's just be honest. It did not go great. And we were really unhappy, George and I, at the way things went last night. And so, despite the fact that I have to get up 5 a.m. for work, which is not unlike a lot of you. I'm not special or, unique in that. I managed to get up. George and I stayed up till nearly, I don't know, what was it, George? I think like 11 maybe. Trying to really work out some of these problems.
10 o'clock.
No, it wasn't.
It was like 10. No, it was like
I didn't
10.
even get in bed till almost midnight. Had to be later than that. But regardless, I guess it's, here nor there. We stayed here a good long time trying to solve the issues that we had during the first broadcast. And we did solve a really good number of them. As you may notice, my HD camera is working and the sound is working, which is great. I'm trying to find George. I'm trying to find this schedule. I'm trying to remember if somebody's on after us, because I think they might be. I really should have downloaded. Oh, where did I put it on Google Drive? That's where I put it. I just want to make sure, because I think somebody's on after us. We worked hard to try to solve all of this, and I think we did a good deal. Now, we still don't have no, I didn't save it right. We still don't have the phone line exactly hooked in. We think we know how to fix that. But we're so painfully close to solving all of these little nidgy problems. But I think the important thing is thank you for being there, for hanging in, for being patient, for being understanding. This is it's a brand new venture. Let's just be blunt, right? It's a brand new thing. And we, a lot of things can go wrong, and it did. But the bottom line is that we are here, and so are you, and we couldn't be happier. We are live right now on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Plus, we have shared the program on Facebook to about 100 places. Oh, no one's on after us. Okay, so we can be a little sloppier tonight. I can be a little more patient, I guess. Not that I want to, well, I shouldn't say that out loud. I was going to say, not that I want to sit here till midnight. I do want to sit here till midnight. That's the problem, is I do want to sit here till midnight. I'd much rather be doing this, knowing full well that there's a chance that my bosses at my 7 to 5 job. Might even be listening, but T Nathan comes on at 11. You're correct, but I'm saying like nobody's right on at 9 o'clock. Believe me, we're not staying here till 11. I gotta work tomorrow. Oh my god. The bottom line though is that we worked really hard to try to fix all these problems because, just a quick note, I guess, about internet radio and content creators, I think, generally throughout the internet. And that is, last that I had counted, I'm sure a quick Google search would answer this for me. I'm not going to do it as we're speaking, but there are over 10 million podcasts alone. That does not even count in all of the folks like us here at GCPR who do live radio. So just the recorded podcast roster, community, whatever you want to call it, I think there's well over 10 million of those. And I have to be honest with you, and they'll probably feel the same way about me. It's a lot of crap. And a lot of it is cheaply done. A lot of it is just somebody holding up their phone as they walk down the street. And you know what? They're popular. Some people are popular for doing it that way. Some people they're approachable. They're considered to be approachable because it looks very natural and it looks very spontaneous. Others, like some of the biggest political talk stars on the Twitch platform, have big video boards behind them and huge 30-inch screens in front of them, and they calls stacked up in the queue, and so there's a lot of crap, and then there's some really good stuff. There's some stuff that looks like it's network quality. There's some stuff that looks like it's random pocket dial video. When we created GCPR, we made ourselves a promise that we would try to present to you as professional an image, and I mean a literal video image, and a good quality radio sound as we could afford to bring you. And we could have spent thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, and it would have sounded like we were sitting right next to you. But we've committed to do the best that we absolutely can, and obviously last night wasn't perfect, but I think the good thing, if I'm not being too bold here and patting us both on the back, George and I, is that it really, really bothered us. So we stayed and we worked on it and we fixed a lot of things. And I think we're this close to getting the phones fixed for you as well. And we look forward to doing that. 45 minutes already left of the show. These 1 hour things are pretty weird, right? Hey, I'm not used to this. We usually do 3 hours on a Sunday. And guess what? We still will be. We will be here on Sunday evening as well. Quickly, let's go to the chat before we get into the top story of the day. And I think, by the way, that's what this program's going to be. It's going to, what's the top story of the day, and try to make it relatable and understandable if it's not understandable, and break it down for you as to how it affects you, not how you should feel about it. I've always done this program from the time that we've started, and I've always said that I am not here to tell you what to think, but rather to try to get you to think. And look, if you agree with me, I'm cool with that. I think any politician wants people to agree with them and wants their support. But it's not all about that. It's about thinking and talking with each other. So let me get right to let me get into some of the comments. Donna was kind enough to be here again tonight after suffering with us last night. Randall, of course, is here, which he couldn't be more kind again after suffering with us last night. Oh, one really cool thing I fixed my on-air sign. Yeah, I fixed my on-air sign. Very, very happy about that. As you know, as many of you know, I'm all tangled already. As many of you know, I'm a child. Sometimes the simplest little things make me happy and make me laugh. I got my on-air sign fixed. I found a cord. I could get it plugged back in again. Let me get to Donna, who's here. Thank you. Randall says, fingers crossed everything goes smooth. So far, so good. Don't jinx it over there, my friend. Donna says, I got a notification that AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, representative, U.S. House Representatives from the Bronx, from New York. I don't remember what district number hers is, but she represents the South Bronx. That she filed for the impeachment of Supreme Court. Can anyone verify that this is true? Here's a very interesting thing. And I have every belief in my heart that Donna typed that message. I got the exact message sent to me 2 days ago. It was actually before the immunity decision. It was after Chevron. I got the very same message sent to me from a friend. It was worded exactly the same. Now, Donna says she typed it. I just said, I have no doubt that you typed it, but it's very interesting that that message was sent to me by a friend days ago in exactly the same wording, which is interesting and a little frightening. So Donna says she typed the message. Absolutely. No doubt in my mind. It's just kind of odd that the wording is exactly the same. When that story was sent to me by my friend, quick Google search debunked it straight away. She has not done anything of the sort. In my well, I shouldn't even say in my opinion. My research tells me she's done no such thing. And she has the right as a member of the House of Representatives, and impeachment charges have to begin in the House. But it'll go nowhere because even though the Republicans have a very slim majority, they still have a majority. So it's not going to go anywhere. What we as a public, in my opinion, need to begin to do is, we're on my LinkedIn too. I forgot about that. I have a LinkedIn page and we're live there. That's pretty cool. We're live. How many different places are we live right now, George? Facebook? The 100 places I shared on Facebook. LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. I guess if you count Facebook once, it's 5. But anyway, she can do that as a member of the House of Representatives. There's a congressman from Texas, Al Green, Democrat from Texas, who used to file impeachment charges against George W. Bush at the beginning of every Congress. He was perpetually reelected from his district in Texas. And even though we think of Texas as a red state, and it is a very red state, it's also a gerrymandered state, which keeps it red. Al Green represented one of the metropolitan areas. I want to say it was the Houston area, but I could be way off. And at the beginning of every single Congress, he would introduce impeachment charges against George W. Bush. Now, they went nowhere. Even the years that the Democrats had the majority, they went nowhere. So Republicans obviously would never going to further something like that. And when Democrats did take control, they didn't take it seriously because we actually respect the impeachment process. We don't think the solution to every political disagreement is an impeachment. I.e. the Republicans trying to impeach Homeland Secretary Mayorkas. They simply don't like the policies. And then even when the administration hands them a piece of legislation with all the policies that they want, they still turn their nose up at it. Democrats respect impeachment. Republicans think it's a weapon. But then again, Republicans think everything's a weapon. If all you see are nails, this is a very old saying, and I don't know who said it first, but it really is quite brilliant. Sometimes the oldest things are the best. When all you see is nails, the only solution you can think of is a hammer. That's pretty much how Republicans govern now. No plan, no platform, no guidance, no leadership. So no, all my research tells me she did no such thing. But here's what I do believe that we should be pushing for as an American public. And by the way, there's strong polling data within the Republican Party with the self-identified Republicans in support of this. We talked about it a little bit last night. Article 3, Section 2. Well, let's go back to a little basic constitutional construction. The framers envisioned a national government with 3 separate but equal, co-equal branches, each of which had checks and balances over the other. And perhaps in this, where we find ourselves now as a country, it's time for Congress to use one of its most important checks and balances in its entire construction, in the entire constitutional construction, formation, foundation of our government. Article 3, Section 2. And I should back up again because I skipped something. When I get on a rant, sometimes I forget. I don't organize my thoughts well. I have nothing in front of me, by the way. I don't have like 35 pages of notes. It's all here. That's not always a good thing, but it's here. So the framers envisioned these separate but equal, co-equal branches. But still one of them had to be listed first. They listed Congress first, the House of Representatives and the Senate. We tend to refer to members of the House of Representatives as Congress people. Well, theoretically, yes. They're the representatives. Senate is the Senate. The Senate is technically Congress people. Congress is both houses. But they listed Congress first because it was intended by the framers to be the most local federal office. Meaning, a member of the House of Representatives had a smaller group of constituents than senators. And then even within the listing in Article 1 of the powers of the structure, formation, and powers of Congress, the House of Representatives is listed first. The People's House is listed first in front of the Senate. So you have a 101A, the executive branch, presidency, is listed second. The judiciary is listed third. Jefferson actually goes on in the Federalist Papers to discuss why the judiciary was listed third. Some of it is just simple writing and science, right? If you have 3 things, something has to be first. But the framers intentionally listed the House of Representatives first, the most local federal office. The Senate second, the executive, well, the Senate 1A, the executive second, and the judiciary third. They intentionally listed the judiciary third among equals. Congress shall have the power. I butcher this every time. Somebody will look it up and they can quote it. They can put the quote in a chat or something for me. Congress shall have the power to regulate the courts. It really is that simple. And it's very nice. It was on Nicole Wallach's show that I was listening to in the car on the way home, that she began to turn the conversation. And I think any remaining well-meaning Republicans, and there's a small handful, the handful is entirely too small, but there's a small handful. Any well-meaning Republicans that may be left, independents, non-affiliated, Greens, and of course, Democrats. We need to push Congress to fulfill its constitutional duty, not just a check and balance for political retribution, but to actually use its power. Dino Badala made a great point tonight with Joy Reid on MSNBC that Congress has the power to regulate the courts. If Trump should take a second term and the Republicans maintain, or well, I should say regain, control of both houses of Congress, what's to stop them from putting 2, 4, 11 more justices on the Supreme Court? All of them in their 30s, all probably unqualified, and all strict Trump loyalists. Not even conservatives. Trump loyalists. Fascists. What's to stop them from doing that? Nothing. Nothing. If there has been a fundamental failure of Democrats at the national level, it has been that we have not realized that we are at war. And I don't say that lightly, because it's exceptionally unpleasant to think of. The billionaire class has declared war on Democrats. There's such open, casual talk by these MAGA fascist Republicans about rounding up Democrats and rounding up political enemies and putting us in camps. I am not, by any stretch of the imagination, one of the leading progressive talk hosts in the country. I'm not. I'd like to be. Some days I'd really like to think I could be. Occasionally, I think I might even be in there somewhere when I see a random comment come in, or a random like, or something comes in to say, hey, I caught your program, never saw it before, you got me. I'd like to think I'm bigger. I'm not. But I'll use myself as an example. If I'm doing this program, if GCPR still exists, and I believe every second that we will, because I know we will be successful, and we fast forward, it'll be more than 6 months, say 8 months from now, like February of 2025. Trump's back in the White House. The Republicans have taken control of Congress. What's to keep them from coming for me? If I was one of the really big progressive hosts in the country, Tom Hartman, Dino Badala, Michelangelo Signorelli, Randy Rhodes, Stephanie Miller, David Pakman, Ian Masters, I'd be waiting for them to come for me. And what stops that? What's the one thing left that can stop that? And if there's one thing, I'm leading to the fact, what have Democrats failed at a national level to do? We failed to realize that we're at war. What's to keep them from coming? If my scenario were to come true, and I hope it doesn't, what's to keep them from coming for me? When Democrats had complete control of government, first 2 years of the Biden administration, first 2 years of the Obama administration, the first 2 years of the Clinton administration, so many missed opportunities. We could have codified Roe. We could have written off medical debt. We could have written off student debt. We could have passed some type of Medicare for all legislation. Actually, we could have restored Medicare to the original legislative language, which it was meant to be our national health care system. When Medicare was first passed, you had to be 65 for it. The original legislation called for 65 for 10 years and it would drop to 55. For 10 years and it would drop to 45. For 10 years until every single person in the country was covered and eliminated the private insurance industry in this country. We could have done that. We could have restricted or ended the sale of purely internal combustion engines in this country. We could have an entirely solar and wind generated electrical grid. And we could have dramatically balanced the judiciary. Not stacked it, but balanced it. And we didn't. And now, with this supreme, not court, but supreme corporation, we are dramatically less free than we were 36 hours ago. We're less free than we were before Dobbs. We're less free than we were before the Powell memo and Citizens United and the completely unrestricted interpretation of the Second Amendment. So while the story of the day continues to be this immunity decision, the rest of the story is yet to be written. And that is what now? What now is that whether it is Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom, or Joe Smith, I don't know who Joe Smith is, random person, is the Democratic nominee for president, that person has to win. Adam Kinzinger himself, lifelong Republican, military veteran, member of the January 6th committee, drummed out of office by his own party for having the patriotism and the intellectual honesty to tell the truth. He endorsed Joe Biden, said he would vote for him, said he would campaign for him if asked. At the same time being able to say, I don't agree with the policies of Joe Biden, except that we both love democracy. Trump will end democracy, Joe Biden will protect it. And for that reason, he's endorsed him. Liz Cheney hasn't exactly said the words endorse, but she has said, if you want to save democracy, vote for every Democrat you can. This now has to be the focus. We must have a Democrat in the White House and have Democratic control of Congress. And then the following step that is that we as an American public must then pressure that majority to exercise its constitutional powers before there is no constitution to exercise. Article 3, Section 2. So that's a big rant on the article that Donna has seen. Took half the show, didn't it? No, well, not half. I was talking about technology before. I think it was George was kind enough to put in the chat, or someone did from YouTube, if the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to see every problem as a nail. So I got it completely backward, didn't I? I told you I would butcher quotes. I always butcher quotes. This is a famous quote by Abraham Maslow, which refers to the concept commonly known as the law of instrument, or Maslow's theory. Donna was taking notes. I hope not. Very flattered by that, Donna, but do your own research. The Google machine is a brilliant piece of technology. It'll tell you everything you need to know. Let me see. I think that will come. Donna says, I think it will come for all of us that don't support him. They can't get all of us. There's too many. There's way too many. And remember, a Republican hasn't won the popular vote for presidency in this country since George H.W. Bush in 1988. So there's more of us. But they can come for the AOCs of the world, the Bernie Sanders, the Elizabeth Warrens, Kamala Harris, the Gavin Newsoms, the Josh Shapiros, the Phil Murphys, the Mark Pokans, the Ed Markeys, the Kennedys, Tom Hartman. They can come for them. People like Jimmy Kimmel, John Oliver, Jon Stewart. They can come for them. They can't get all of us. They need us. They need bodies in the military. Corporations need cheap labor, and they need consumers. So they can't come for all of us. But they can come for the leadership. And after this decision yesterday, this is no longer fantasy. This is no longer dystopian science fiction. It is now a real possibility that they will come for us in a manner that would make the Japanese internment look like a cartoon. So let me get a little bit to the big article of the day. It's also 8:35 Eastern Time. 8:35 Eastern Time. This is TKE Tonight, the Kennedy Effect weeknight program for July 2nd, 2025. 2025? It's because I was just talking about 2025. I was also talking about Project 2025. 2024. Let me try that again. July 2nd, 2024. Our second night, just night number 2 here on GCPR. Stay with GCPR. There is a bit of a break in live programming after us. T. Nathan comes your way at 11 p.m. If you don't know who he is, you need to. Very, very simple. You need to. If you don't know who, here's a man with several million followers on social media. You may have seen some of his videos, his activism. If you don't know who he is, stay tuned. Come right back here. GCPR from 11 p.m. Eastern. So there is a little break after George and I leave you. A little bit of a break. Come back at 11 and check out T. Nathan. We will be back with you again tomorrow night from 8 p.m. The Sound of Coffee will be with you tomorrow morning with Thomas McCormick as well. And we will not be with you on the 4th of July, probably not on Friday the 5th either. I think we're all here at GCPR. The team here is going to need a few days to I want to say reconfigure. Kind of regroup a little bit, go over what happened, how it went, how it didn't go, all of it, what's working, what's not working. And then, we come straight back on the 8th. Let me get to the big story of the day. There's really 2 things for me. One is a really, I would call it a bit of a clickbait story. Other than the fact that it's real, I would call it a bit of a clickbait story. And that is from the AP, the Associated Press. Pressure is building on Biden to step aside, but many Democrats feel powerless to replace him. Article is written by Steve Peoples, Will Weiser, and Joey Capoletti, and I hope I'm pronouncing the gentlemen's names correctly. If I am not, my deep apologies. Don't mean to butcher anybody's name. President Bernie Sanders describes I'm reading now from the article. I should have said that. Again, the headline, pressure is building on Biden to step aside, but many Democrats feel powerless to replace him. Steve Peoples, Will Weiser, and Joey Capoletti of the Associated Press from Washington. Bernie Sanders describes President Joe Biden's recent debate performance as, quote-unquote, painful. In an interview, he says he's not confident that Biden can win this fall. But the progressive senator from Vermont does not want Biden to step aside. Instead, Sanders, who served as Biden's chief rival in the Democratic Party's 2020 nomination fight, is calling on voters to adopt a maturity, quote-unquote, as they view their options this fall. Quote, a presidential election is not a Grammy Award contest for best singer or entertainer. It's about who has the best policies that impact our lives, Sanders said. I'm going to do everything I can to see that Joe Biden gets reelected. Now, there is, of course, a growing sense, and the very first elected national figure, Congressman Lloyd Doggett of Texas, came out today publicly and believes that President Biden should step aside as the party's nominee. And there is some precedent for this with LBJ in '68, who began to run for re-election and later stepped aside because he realized that while he would win the nomination as the incumbent president, his presence within the election would be extremely divisive. And of course, the country at that summer of '68, of course, was a summer of great violence and all the violence at the Democratic National Convention. So LBJ stepped aside. And let's remember, he had already been president for 6 years. So there is that. So there is precedent for this. But is that, and I do think that the rumblings inside the party are real. I think there are very powerful, highly elected, and when I mean high, like high office, elected Democrats who think, wow, we really need to make a change here. At the end of the day, do I think a change will be made? I do not. I think the biggest reason that a change will not be made is because an open convention will be an absolute disaster. Conventions, modern political conventions, are television events. They are 3-day long commercials for that party. You trot out speakers and very well produced promotional videos, and we have the roll call of states when you already know who the nominee is. There hasn't really been an open convention since the Democratic Convention in 1968. And even then, there was a primary, whole, series of regularly scheduled primaries and caucuses going into it. And Bobby Kennedy would have been the nominee had he not been assassinated. But instead, without that presence, without the Kennedy name at the convention became a series of offers and trades and deals and brokerages between McCarthy and McGovern, and the party was going to Teddy Kennedy, asking him to be the nominee. They were searching for a nominee, even though not McGovern. I just said his name. Even though they had gone through the primary process, there was still really no consensus with the massive hole and vacuum left by Bobby Kennedy about who should be the nominee. Having such little time, the DNC, I think, is just in a few weeks, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's in a few weeks. It might be after the Olympics. There really isn't Do I think there's some behind the scenes brokering going on already? Do I think that somebody out there, a governor, might even be the governor from here, is making some phone calls behind the scenes going, well, if he steps aside, what do you think? Can I have your help? I think it would be a figurative political bloodbath with possibly double-digit number of people seeking the party's nomination. None of them, of course, having a majority of delegates to win it. But I wouldn't be stunned if 6, 8, 12 people stepped forward to try to capture that nomination. And along the way, sliced and diced and divided this party down into the smallest of sections, while the Republicans sit back and laugh and raise money. I do not believe Mr. Biden will step aside. I don't. I'm not 100% sure he should, even though there is precedent for it. I'm not 100% sure he would. I do think he's a decent enough man to say that if he comes to the realization that it is the best thing, that he will. I certainly have not agreed with all of Joe Biden's policies in his 40-year career, 40-plus year career, 50-year career nearly. I certainly have not. And I won't list all of my grievances here. But what I will say is that I think he's a decent enough man, not decent enough. I think he's an extremely decent human being. I truly, truly do. I think he is among the best among us in his character, his faith, his compassion. If he wakes up one morning or sees himself in the mirror as he's tying his tie and says, it is the right thing to do to step aside, I believe he will. But I don't believe that he believes that. I don't believe that the majority of the party believes that. And I happen to believe that if he does, the convention is going to be an absolute circus. And again, it won't be one or two people that come forward. Half a dozen or more. Remember, in the 2020 nominating process, at one point there were 22 or 24 declared Democratic candidates for president. I don't think we'll see that many if the convention should be open, but it will be a lot. They will be a lot. The other story that I wanted to get to is that we are seeing now, I think we all know, the Dobbs decision gave the American Taliban, the Christian nationalists, what they wanted. And I think, by the way, we need to begin calling them the American Taliban. Because what's the difference between the Taliban in Afghanistan and Christian nationalism here? The Taliban in Afghanistan thinks women aren't people, they're property. And that you will obey a strict Sharia law or face the consequences. Sounds just like Christian nationalism here in the United States to me. You will follow Christian law. I don't know what Christian law is exactly. I know what their definition of is it, what the corporate Christians' definition is of it. The Bible's definition of Christianity is love thy neighbor. That the answer to all things is love and fellowship. Clothe the naked, feed the hungry, house the homeless, welcome the immigrant. It is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to go to heaven. Man cannot serve two masters, God and money. That is Christianity. The corporate Christian American Taliban is women have no dominion over their own bodies and should not be in the workplace. Immigrants should be shot at the border. You believe what I believe, even if I never live it, or you're not a person to me. Funny how many of these big mega church pastors are found with, male escort phone numbers in their phone and all these things. Another one, I think just a few weeks ago, another one had to resign because he was having an affair with some, That's the American Taliban. So in the Dobbs decision, the Christian nationalist American Taliban got what it wanted. In the court's decision to strike down affirmative action on college campuses, the white nationalists got what they wanted. And the Ivy League legacists got what they wanted. In the Citizens United decision, and subsequent, in the Chevron decision, the billionaires got what they wanted. Because let's remember, all of these groups are the ones that own the Supreme Corporation. And it's a shame that we keep lumping all the justices together. There are 9 of them, and 3 of them consistently vote against all this stuff. But it's not a Supreme Court, it's a Supreme Corporation now. So in Chevron, the billionaires got what they wanted. Well, in the immunity decision, Trump got what he wanted. Well, what did he want? Immunity. But today, in what has been wrongly referred to as the hush money case in New York, what it really was is an election interference case. But most people know it as a hush money case. Headline, again, from the Associated Press. And if you're wondering why I'm using the Associated Press so much, it's because it's a free app. That's why I use NPR a lot, too. I used to use The Guardian for everything. And then they turned into a pay site, and I can't afford it. Headline, Judge delays Trump's hush money sentencing until at least September after the High Court immunity ruling. This is written by Jake Offenhartz and Jennifer Peltz. Again, of the Associated Press. In a major reprieve for former President Donald Trump, sentencing for his hush money convictions was postponed Tuesday until at least September, if ever, as the judge agreed to weigh the possible impact of the new Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity. Trump had been scheduled to face sentencing July 11, just before the Republicans' nominating convention, on his New York convictions on felony charges of falsifying business records. Of course, he denies any wrongdoing. The postponement sets the sentencing for September 18th at the earliest, if it happens at all, since Trump's lawyers are arguing that the Supreme Court ruling merits not only delaying the sentencing, but tossing out his conviction. Trump and his team of lawyers believe. Now, this all came out in court. So I'm not making this up. It's out there. It's in the court records. It was testimony, open court testimony. The checks, the actual checks for the money that went to Stormy Daniels and to repay Michael Cohen for the money that went to Stormy Daniels, Trump wrote those checks in the Oval Office, in the White House. So now, given the Supreme Court decision, his lawyers are trying to make the argument that that was an official presidential action. And boy, after all, the Supreme Court just ruled official presidential actions immune from prosecution. Think about that. the money used to repay Michael Cohen, to hide the Stormy Daniels affair so that it did not affect the 2016 election, those checks to pay him back, Trump wrote them out and signed them at the presidential desk in the Oval Office. And now they're claiming it was an official presidential action. Do you see now how insidious, how anti-small d democratic this decision is? And to me, those are the two big stories of the day. While my party is in somewhat of disarray, not total disarray, but frayed at the edges, the other one is consolidating power. The other one is preparing further, not to govern, but to rule. To rule. So from my side, we better get it together. We better get it together. Whether you support this president or not, whether you believe that he's been a good president, that he's a good man, if you believe in his policies, you don't believe in his policies, you think he's accomplished a lot or a little, whatever you might think of him, and even if it doesn't end up being him as the nominee, this election now has really come down to one thing. And I despise when elections are that narrow. This is a big country. It's a powerful country. And it's a rich country with deep, deep, deep divisions and problems. And none of it gets solved. None of it gets solved if Trump returns to the White House. In fact, it gets exacerbated. And democracy ends. Not because I'm saying it, but because that's what Trump's already told you. So at the end of the day, Supreme Court put aside, Dobbs put aside, even Citizens United put aside. This election now has come down to one thing. Will the great American experiment continue, or will it end? Will democracy continue, or will it end? Will November 5th, 2024 be just the next in a series of elections, or will it be the last election? Because, folks, I'm telling you, that's where we are. We are that close. We're that close. Is it the last election or just the next one? Do we remain a small d democratic nation, or do we become a capital F fascist nation, dictatorship? That's what the whole election now comes down to. We can still talk about tax policy, and during this campaign, we will, and young folks, and they should be, by the way, will be upset about student debt, and some of us will be upset that it costs entirely too much to see a doctor. I just threw my back out again last night. Kristen said we have to go see a doctor. For what reason? You can't just walk in and see a doctor anymore. He's only going to send you for an MRI, which is going to be 3 weeks from now. I'm already better than it was this morning. The system is created to not use it. Pay for it, but don't use it. How many other things in life do you pay so much money for and then don't use? But we can talk about all of that stuff. We can talk about Medicare for all. We can talk about green energy and climate change and sea level rise and the foreign, the big foreign policy problems of destabilization in the Middle East, China, Russia, Iran. We can talk about all of that, and those are all important things. They're genuinely important. But none of it, nothing of it means anything if we are no longer a democracy, and none of it gets solved. None of it gets solved. So at the end of the day, that is what this is all about. It's what this entire election is about. It's about democracy. It's about democracy. Will it continue or will it end? That's what it's all about. And we better realize it. We better realize it. I mentioned to you last night that there's a couple of like catchphrases that have become really like super popular, but I find them somewhat demeaning. And one of them is, you have to realize, or you better wake up and see, or you better understand. They're very shouty and demanding of people. I don't like it. But they're true. And we as a society, we as a nation, we as a populace, no matter what side we are on, we must come to the realization, we just must, for our own survival as a nation, as a populace, as a population, as a community. This election is now about nothing other than democracy itself. The survival of the government, of our society, of norms, political norms, the survival of the Constitution itself. You know that a lot has been talked about Project 2025. Project 2025 is not a 10-year plan. It's meant to be fully implemented in 180 days. 180 days before lawsuits can be filed, before Congress can act, assuming that Democrats have any control over either. And by the way, with now this kind of blanket presidential immunity, a portion of Project 2025 is implemented 10 days into a new Trump term. The ACLU sues. A judge says, nope, sorry, Trump administration, you can't do that. And the Trump administration tells them, don't care what you say. We're ignoring you. Presidential immunity. My official act as president is to tell this court to go F itself. How's that? Where do you go from there? So Project 2025 is not a 10-year plan. It's not a, well, I guess it is a business plan, but it's not a traditional business plan. It is meant to be fully implemented within 180 days. So from January 20th, 2025, if Trump were to take office, within 180 days, the United States would no longer be the United States. In many, many ways, it already isn't. And this all started with the Powell memo, when he convinced rich people that they better start buying the process because the middle class was too big and too powerful. And that if the rich wanted to stay rich, they better buy the system. And they have. And as we continue throughout these nights, that's where this discussion has to go. Because just as I believe now that this election is now down to one issue and one issue only, we also need to look at what's behind it. Billionaires don't care if women can get abortions. Most of them will tell you that. But they do care that they have bought and marshaled this voting bloc called Christian nationalists. Billionaires generally don't care how many guns you have. Most of them would tell you, it seems kind of reasonable that you don't need an AR-15. But the Second Amendment gun nuts, they have them bought off too, and they're part of the voting bloc. They've made a conscious decision that democracy is no longer convenient. Because in my opinion, this is more than just about power. At the end of the day, it all comes down to money. I never, of course, remember the actual quote. I always get it wrong. I get all of the quotes wrong. But it was the former premier of the Soviet Union during the late 50s and 60s, Nikita Khrushchev, when he was asked by one of his generals, will we go to war with the Americans? He said, we won't have to, because they'll collapse from within, because greed will overtake them. We will never have to fire a shot, because greed will overtake them. That's what we've seen. Billionaires don't care about abortion. Don't care about guns. Hell, they really don't care about immigration. They want that cheap labor. But they do care about money. And they have purchased a political movement. Not a movement, really. They purchased a political party and helped create and helped foment a political cult, just so they can have more and more and more and more money. Supreme Court's Dobbs decision was icing on the cake. It was to throw a bone to the Christian nationalists so that the billionaires who bought the Supreme Corporation could go back to them and see what we did for you. Now we want your votes. Because at the end of the day, when you go in the voting booth, a billionaire has a vote, you have a vote. The richest man in the country has one vote. The poorest in the country has one vote. They know there's more of us. That's why they have to strip us off the voting rolls, jail us on cheap drug charges, buy the courts, gerrymander the districts. Because at the end of the day, it's all about money. And I know that my sisters in this cause will say, no, it's about my body. It is about your body. I get that. But I know Trump, before he declared himself a Republican, I tend to wonder if he's actually legitimately registered as a Republican. My guess would be he is, just for the press of it, but he never was. He was a registered Democrat up until President Obama. He used to say, when same-sex marriage was a big issue, Why the New York press had to, interview him for all these things, I have no clue. They asked him what he thought of it. He said, why do we care about such things? These are private matters. Why do we care? If two people want to get married, let them get married. He had spoken out in the past in favor of adoption. He never cared about abortion. But the people who could support him and vote for him, the people that the billionaires had bought off, they did care. They do care. And they created a voting bloc. They bought themselves one. They're the minority, but they're damn near universal in their voting. Why is the Democratic Party such a big tent? Because we're the only effing tent left upright. I think that's about all the damage that we can do for one night. It is a little bit after 9. Our program is supposed to be 1 hour. But because nobody was coming on live, we have a couple extra minutes. Let me again remind you, I want to try. So I went to the YouTube page, try to find out who was commenting. And it doesn't say. Oh, it was George, I think, put these comments in for me to see. Appreciate that. I think it was you. You'll tell me eventually, one of these days. Let me get back to, okay, the schedule. I actually do have a GCPR schedule. What I need to do, and I may just do it right now, so I have it, is, it won't let me. I would really like to print it. There it is. I need to print this schedule so that I can, no, I can't print this schedule. Why can't I print this schedule, George? So I could keep it in front of me, then I would know what's happening. Anyway, Tuesday, again, T. Nathan comes up, Conversations with T. Nathan comes up at 11 p.m. here on GCPR. T. Nathan is live. He lives in St. Louis, if I'm not mistaken. If you don't know T. Nathan, you should. You really should. If any of you think that I influence people by doing this show, I am not I'm not a speck of dust on T. Nathan. He's got people. And they listen and they follow. Sound of Coffee returns tomorrow morning from 8, I think. Could be a tad later. And then, of course, we will return to you tomorrow from 8 p.m. Please, wherever you've taken in the program, drop a like, a subscription, and I don't mean a paid one. You subscribe to the YouTube, give us a like on Facebook. If anyone is there on Twitch, I'd really love to know if somebody was there on Twitch. Twitter, anything, give us a like, give us a follow. It would really be great. We would deeply appreciate it. It's only day 2 of the rest of our lives here at GCPR. So we hope that you will stay tuned to us every single time that we're on. And we're continuing to add shows. I had another discussion with a possible new program today. George is commenting from the Twitch. George is just sitting back there going, I have to get to all these social media platforms and say hello. We're having another meeting on Saturday with another potential show host. The roster continues to grow. So something's happening here and we want you to be part of it. We're not always perfect. Sometimes, like last night, the sound doesn't work. Sometimes, like tonight, I still can't get the phone to work. But we're here, and we're live, and you are welcome here. It's about all the damage we can do for one night. I'm Jeff Kennedy. For everybody at GCPR, for Sergeant Mac, Thomas McCormick, the villain, the head villain, for Gilbert and Gambit, and T. Nathan and Robert Kosh and Pastor Best, and I don't know who else I'm forgetting. I probably am forgetting somebody. And of course, for Lynn and George Dare, for Kristen, Daisy the dog, and somehow still hanging in there, Guy the cat downstairs. I'm Jeff Kennedy, and that's about all the damage we can do. We will see you again tomorrow night. T. Nathan comes up at 11 a.m. I was really on a roll. I was on a very professional I was in a really professional radio role there for a second. T. Nathan comes up live here on GCPR and everywhere that you can find GCPR. YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of it. Everywhere you can find GCPR. T. Nathan's there live from 11 p.m. Eastern. Sound of Coffee tomorrow morning. We will see you again tomorrow night from 8 p.m. Thank you all for being there and have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Again, I know there's a break. Go get cookies, get milk, walk the dog, whatever you got to do. T. Nathan at 11 for everybody at TKE tonight. Have a wonderful night. We'll talk to you tomorrow.